Just all fancy.
All stuffed out. I got the same T-shirt and overalls I had
All
on when I
right.
went for a hike. Good evening, everybody. We got a
Let me lower the
special
music.
edition going on tonight. It's definitely a heavier subject than a lot of times that we normally talk about, because we're talking about hate and violence against the transgender community and what's the current state. For people that don't know what they're watching, in case they don't, this is CPD, and we do have our host Christian Cano and myself, Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. We're going to talk about this over the next hour. And Christian,
Yes.
let's get this started.
Well, thank you, Jenny, for filling in for Mama Ruth. Usually does that introduction, but she's not joining us tonight. And also our neighbors, Barbara and Stephen, unfortunately, will not be joining us tonight. We did invite a guest from Los Angeles who is a transgender activist, and unfortunately, there's some local issues going on in the California area, and she sent me a message about 5:30 or so today. So we decided, Jenny and I are, when we make a commitment, we do it. And so we made a decision to go on with the show and really kind of make this an educational, hopefully answer some questions that people might have. I'm Christian Cano. Thank you for joining us on the special edition of Coffee and Pandusi. Our normal show is on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, but there are several important issues that we've talked about on the show that we decided to do a Thursday night show this week, next week, and then another one on May 20th about 3 issues that are important. This is going to be about transgender issues that have been going on around the country, and specifically here in North Carolina, right in our backyard. Also next week, we'll be talking about gun violence, the proposed gun ban or assault weapon ban, I believe is the topic we'll be talking about. And then on May 20th, we will be talking about the 600,000, will be unfortunately reaching 600,000 deaths due to COVID-19, or murders is what I've been calling it. But with that said, Jenny, introduce yourself, but go slowly so I can share us, because it's just us and St. Bernie. And please introduce yourself and your imaginary button, please.
Well, my name is Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, and I am a Charlotte and North Carolina transgender activist. I'm involved with several different organizations, including the LGBTQ Democrats, the National Organization of Women Charlotte, Equality North Carolina, PAC, CRAN, which is Charlotte Reproductive Action Network. I'm an LGBT advisor to that group, and Charlotte Pride, and specifically I'm a co-coordinator for the Real Out Film Festival, which is happening this year in October, but also the Charlotte Pride Transgender group as well. And I am an openly genderqueer trans woman, and been living as such since 2016. So it is, and deal with a lot of the issues. And North Carolina is no stranger to transgender issues, and our General Assembly as well, dating back to 2016. So I think that's probably a really good place to start, when we do start talking about the subject. And then Christian, if you want to go ahead and talk about your buttons and,
sure,
and why we're here.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jenny. I know you're involved in so many organizations, and I wouldn't call you an activist. You're an advocate. I mean, I mean, I don't know if you want to consider yourself an activist. I think you're more of an advocate. You advocate for so many wonderful things. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts. And my imaginary, well, actually, they're not imaginary. My buttons are Medicare for All, which is what I have been pushing for since 2018. Also, Moms Demand Action. I've got that button going on here. Joe Oldham, who was a guest of ours, a frequent guest of ours, who passed away this year. I had his little tag here that I left him out of the jacket. But Joe Oldham, I'll always remember what he taught us on the show. And also on my other jacket, if you watch the show regularly, it is Trust Women. I am a recovering misogynist. Is that saying that right? And so I'm educated, I'm learning all the time. And so our topic today.
And I think that is an important segue. I think a lot of times people use excuses for their internalized ignorance or bigotry or whatever environment shaped them, whatever nurtured them, we always have to take into account that you can use that as an excuse so you can grow. And I tell people all the time, I use several of my loved ones and friends as examples. And in fact, I was just talking about this to my roommate just about an hour ago. I said, my friend Christian that I do the show with has grown a lot in when it comes to internalized sexism and misogyny. And when I call him out on something, he takes it very well. He internalizes it, thinks about it, and more often than not corrects that behavior. And I think if more people in society acted like you, we would have a better world. We don't have to be perfect, because there's things I say, definitely I probably shouldn't say. We're both two strong individuals in the LGBT community. We both are very politically motivated. You've run for office twice and have a strong personality, but you're also an intelligent and reasonable human being and very compassionate. You've been very compassionate to me. So when people say, well, I don't like Christian because he's a misogynist, I'm going, well, I'm a woman and he's never been sexist or misogynist to me. And he's, we've gotten in fights like siblings do, like we're adopted siblings, we're close
That's
friends.
right.
If people don't know that, is that we have a lot, sometimes we even voice our internal jokes, our inside jokes here on the show that they might not know. People that don't know us and don't know the setting, but we are close friends. And I consider you a brother and a dear friend. But I guess my whole point is that, even somebody like my dad that's 77 years old, card-carrying Republican, retired vet, Texan, all the check boxes that would make him very transphobic. The moment I came out to him, he immediately accepted me. He immediately didn't even question that deal. And I go, if a 77-year-old man that can accept who I am and not be transphobic, anybody can. Age, upbringing is not an excuse to do wrong. Wrong is wrong and right is right. And I think as a tribute to you, for one, doing a show on a subject that is controversial as hate and transphobia can be a hard subject to talk about. It's not, this isn't light reading. We're not talking about Disney movies or this isn't a fluff piece like we're going to have next week, which is the chocolate, the chocolate show.
Right.
That's a lot more lighthearted and a lot more fun. This is not a lighthearted subject at all. It's a very heavy subject, but I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the insight coming from a cisgendered male that is a strong ally to my community and all that. And it goes to show that growth is capable, no matter how high we rise. Sure. We all can grow. We can all grow from experiences. I learned a lot about the LatinX community, especially here in Charlotte, because of you and Ruth, and a lot of the challenges, a lot of the, even had to take a look at my own internalized racism and go, am I saying that? Am I accidentally doing it without knowing it? And really thinking about how I interact with Latinx people and not making sure I'm one of those white people that goes, well, I have a Latinx friend, I can't be racist. It's like, and it's easy to do.
I live in San Antonio.
I grew up in San Antonio, so I'm honorary Latinx. I'm going, no, I'm white. I'm very white. And so I gotta make sure that when somebody's telling their story, that it's their story, not my story, and I got to be careful about what I say and really check my own internalized white privilege and I think we all need to do that, no matter how open-minded we are, so but I appreciate you having the show and I appreciate tackling such a tough subject.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was important, especially because, we can't really get into as deep as we always wanted to on our regular show on Wednesdays, because we're talking about more lighthearted issues some of the times. I mean, we've had some serious shows, but, a couple of weeks ago, we had these it was called Spring Cleaning in Transphobia. That was a show that we had, and we really talked about maybe within our Latinx community. I think it was a very educational show. And I think over the last 2.5 years, this is our 139th, or I have it somewhere, show. And there are a lot of issues that we've talked about, but I think the more that we talk about these issues, the less fear or just like when we were doing marriage equality, the more we talk about things and educate people, the less afraid they are of something that's somewhat different, so to speak. And so let's segue into the show. Like we would normally do in the daytime, we would host to Coffee and Pan Dulce. But since the evening, I guess we will salute to whatever you're drinking. I'm drinking red wine. So,
I'm drinking a little alcohol-free seltzer right now.
Okay.
So, and in fact, it has a little caffeine in it too.
Excellent. And then our regular show on Wednesday mornings, we always show some Manolo's Bakery, who sponsors our show during the week. But one of the reasons that I think this is really important was because, and you can maybe spend some time educating us or updating us, there have been, I don't know how many, proposed legislation that state legislators all around the country. There was one recently here in North Carolina, which I think has officially been stopped today. We'll talk about that in a bit. It was the Women's Sports Freedom Act, or I don't know, something to that effect. But tell us what's going on around the country. I know you and I have talked about this, and we talk about it all the time on the show. The Republican Party, every election cycle, every 2 years, they come up with some boogeyman, something to rile up mainly the religious base, the fundamentalist religious base, because I don't want to lump fundamentalism in with regular people who are people of faith, because most people of faith are really good, decent people. But we have this section of religious fundamentalism that they're just, they just hate, they're afraid and hate everything. And,
well,
go ahead.
To speak to that, I think
Sure.
We have to differentiate institutional bigotry for different gains, political gains, monetary gains, versus a rank and file person that maybe is just ignorant. And so I like to differentiate. We will talk about the institutional bigotry for gain. So when you're talking about the QAnon Republican Party, they have a history or a pattern of using fear against their own base. Honestly, they hate their own base. That they somebody. Can you still hear me? Okay. My little microphone fell out of my ear, so it's going to be my regular microphone. But one of the big things is that they started demonizing the transgender community, actually right here in North Carolina in 2016 with the really infamous now SB2 bathroom bill. But to bring us forward to the current state in 2021, and this is according to the HRC, which has battled this, there has been over 250 anti-LGBTQ bills moving through legislatures in 2021. Out of those 250, 124 are targeting specifically trans people. And almost every one of the 124 is targeting transgender youth.
So let's remind people, Jenny, for those who have very, very short-term memories, in 2016, or what was it, the HB2?
HB2 was in 2016. It was an election year.
Okay, so in 2016, there was this wave of legislation across the country. I know you were involved in the one in Texas, but here in North Carolina, it actually was passed and it was signed by Governor McCrory at the time, Republican governor, and it was everyone called it the bathroom bill. It was this move to protect women for some reason, and you and I talk about this. It's always interesting how the Republicans they just believe that women are just so. White men have to protect all women. That's their job in life, to protect women. That's what they do.
And it's ironic that especially in election years or right before election years, like we're talking about, we'll have the midterms next year, but how all of a sudden women become a priority. All of a sudden we magically need these white knights, these Republicans swooping in on their horses and waving their swords to come in and protect us from hordes of transgender people invading spaces that they belong in. that we belong in. I belong in women's spaces, but how they need to put up some kind of wall between me and cis women, and like I'm going to harm them when there's been no history in the United States. So one of the things that we've got to understand is that between 1998 and 2018, there has been 20 states that have passed protective laws protecting the transgender community, whether it was about employment or safe spaces or whatever. But there's been 20 states, and 2 states passed legislation that would protect like the transgender panic bill, like the gay panic bill, where you can just shoot somebody because you think they're hitting on you. They made that an illegal defense. So California and Hawaii made that illegal. And but a total of 20 states protecting trans people. In those 20 states over that 20-year period, there was no increase in violence connected to the transgender community against cis women or children. So the whole idea that all of a sudden the hordes of trans people are gonna, whether they're youth or adults, they're just gonna overrun this society. The girls' sports and women's sports are gonna be ruined because some trans girl, some 14-year-old trans girl wants to run track. Or so it's
Jenny,
just this ridiculous thing.
Hey, Jenny, let's talk about that, because I do remember 2016 with HB2 that passed.
Right.
It really devastated our state economically. McCrory paid for it by losing the governor's race. And so, we all keep thinking, I hope you've learned from that. Well, there was a bill here in North Carolina that was moving up, SB, can't remember the name of it. It was moving up, and they have made the decision today. I don't know if it was Tim Moore in the House. He made an announcement that said that bill is dead. It is not going to move forward. It is similar to the sports bills and all the other, to protect sports. And his comment was, we shouldn't create laws or social laws, so forth, on issues that don't exist. And because he said no one has come, so a reporter must have asked him, why are you doing this bill? Have been people complaining? He said there's been no reports of anyone.
So the grand wizards of the Republican Party, when they got confronted with the actual statistics about transgender youth in sports in North Carolina, come to find out, there are only 9 total. This is trans boys and trans girls, 9 total out of the whole state that actually are in athletics. So North Carolina, to put it in perspective, has 1.5 million public school students. So out of those 1.5 million, there was 9 students in that system that are transgender and play sports. So if you're going to pass a law banning those 9 kids out of 1.5 million kids, what threat? And not all of them are trans girls. So some of them are trans boys, some of them are, and these are 9 out of the closet trans kids playing sports. So obviously there was no threat. Sure. If they're Audrey Kell High School here in Charlotte has 4,000 students by itself. Even if all 9 of those trans kids were in Audrey Kell schools, the Audrey Kell High School, those 9 kids wouldn't be a threat to their athletic program. But this is the whole state. Sure. And so this is how silly it is, because people don't realize the statistics. So the most important thing is that only 1 out of every 200 human beings are transgender or gender nonconforming, whether they're out of the closet or in the closet. So would you say there's 199 people out of 200 that are not trans? So even in a school with 800 kids, your high side of having a trans kid in your school would be 4 trans kids total, trans boys, trans girls, genderqueer people. So if 4 kids out of 800 are a threat to your school, you've got a problem with your school. You don't have a problem with the trans kids. And so it was a made up false narrative. And not all these anti-transgender youth bills are just about sports. Some of them are denying health coverage,
healthcare,
making it illegal for a doctor or medical professional to treat trans kids. There's one in Texas that is so heinous that they're making it basically, well, they're saying that parents or guardians that take kids to transgender affirming care is child abuse and will involve CPS to take the kids away from the parents. That one's passing through the legislature right now. There is actually 8 anti-transgender youth bills that are sitting on governor's desk as we speak right now. And there's 124 total that are being proposed in some level out of 33 states. So 3 out of 5 states, 60% of our states have at least one anti-transgender bill in their legislature right now, if that makes sense. So it's crazy.
No, we talk about this quite often, and because we're looking at you and I are both Texans, are native Texans. We're not, I don't know if you consider yourself still a Texan. Mama Ruth is a Texan. Barbara has lived in Texas. Our friend Cindy, who watches us and comes on the show, lives in Texas. Pretty much almost everyone from our show have been through Texas or somehow. And, you know, as we look at Texas from the outside, looking in, when I lived in Texas, there was this belief that Texas was this Lone Star state, libertarian, the government don't tread on me, you know, the Tea Party.
Don't mess with Texas.
Yeah, don't mess with Texas. You know, whatever I do on my ranch or in my house is my business and so forth. And what we have seen, or what I have seen from looking from the outside, it has been hijacked by a bunch of crazy religious people. Many of them who really aren't from Texas, or we have a bunch of born again people who lived in Texas to, I guess, make up for their, you know, their past lives. I'm not exactly sure, and I don't mean to make light of that, but I just want to remind people, these are the same people, the same thinking, the same justifications for bills like this that were saying in the 50s and 60s that Black people were dangerous if they went to our schools, or if they dated white, you know, it would be the end of the world, the end of the country, and so forth. These are the same people that had no dogs, no Negroes, no Mexicans on their restaurants in Texas. These are the same people who have discriminated against us about marriage equality before people realized this is not really going to hurt my marriage. You know, remember the talking points? If gay people get married, the world is coming to an end. You know?
Oh yeah, like if we print marriage certificates for gay men that will run out for straight people. I mean, like, there was just some kind of weird chicanery that just blows my mind. But I think even more importantly, you know, is recently as the 1990s. You know, you didn't see out of the closet teachers, especially gay men, because the old false narrative was that gay men would molest little boys, you know, and they can't be a teacher, they can't be a coach. And come to find out, you know, it's more like Dennis Hastert, that was the former Speaker of the House, you know, Republican, that was molesting boys as a coach for decades. And then finally he gets outed by these now that were boys when he molested them, but became grown men. They finally said, yeah, he touched me too. And he finally went to prison over it, you know. And I always wonder when, especially when you're talking about people in authority positions. So getting back to the subject, I think a lot of times these people that are in institutes of power that are authority figures, like religious figures, politicians, specifically conservative politicians, when they get in these positions of power and they create what I call the boogeyman, no matter what it is, whether it's people of different skin color, different ethnicity, different religions, like the Islamophobia and the anti-Semitism that we see in our country crop up from time to time, that we've seen right here in Charlotte. We've seen a lot of anti-Semitism in the last 2 or 3 years, actually. Whether it's homophobia, transphobia, whatever it is, it starts at the top. So it starts from these authority figures. All the anti-transgender bills that have been written came from very specific political action, right-wing terrorist Christian groups. Yeah, so these are coming from so-called churches that are writing the verbiage in these, because the verbiage from state to state is almost identical
Well,
it's a proven fact, and it's a very coordinated attack.
Yeah, those groups that we've seen before that that they have these bills written already, and legislators contact them and say, what bills, that they promote. Hey, this is something that will get you some voters out. It'll get them,
And I will say that goes both ways.
Yeah.
So the same way is that for pro-LGBT groups that are political action communities, we also get involved with helping write legislation, to defend our community. And so it goes both ways. But
this
really, when you're legislating hate and bigotry, it has a brutal effect on the communities that you're targeting.
Sure.
And they're okay with that. And so obviously they are, because they're not ending it. Like in 2021, they should have learned the lessons from 5 years ago, but now we're seeing them go right back at it.
Sure.
At a higher level than they did in 2016 and 2017. And so obviously they didn't learn lessons. They didn't become more decent people.
Well, there's nothing else for them to run on. I mean, remember we talked about on the show, there were 3 issues they were probably going to run on. Opening schools. We didn't open schools fast enough with COVID. Transgender bills was one of the things that they were testing the waters. I think guns was probably another issue, that they were testing the waters. And I think that, they're not stupid people. They do this polling and they realize, hey, these aren't catching on like they would have maybe, our demographic is changing. People have seen how silly this stuff is. And I think I hope what people are seeing is they're realizing that one party, especially currently, and it's really unfortunate, one party, what I don't know what you call it, the QAnon Republican,
the QAnon Republicans,
the QAnon Republican Party. That's right, the GOP QAnon Party.
That's really turned more into a cult.
Yeah. One party, all of their bills and their legislation, most of their bills and legislation, is all about halting other people's rights. Really, that's what it's about. Yeah. Almost all their bills is about, we're afraid of something. We need the government to protect us from our neighbors, our family members, people that we work with. That's really all the bills. If you look at their bills, that's all their bills. The other party, the Democratic Party, bills generally are how to help people, how to move someone forward. It's a very different philosophy, and it's always been that way, but we've never seen it just so blatant. And so what I always want to ask, I know we've had Republicans on the show, when did your party become the party of just scaredy cats? I mean, it's just like, why are you so afraid of transgender individuals? And this is where we wanted to talk about this. The rhetoric about transgender individuals has caused, I believe, hate crimes to the community to rise. It has given people who may be on the margins of saying, hey, you're right, these people are dangerous and so forth. And the reason I say that, Tucker Carlson did a show. If those who watch, I don't watch Fox, but there are many people who watch us that watch Fox, and I have a lot of family members.
He did a show. I don't eat out of the toilet either, so I definitely can't watch Fox.
That's right. So, and we have a lot of people that watch us on the down low later on YouTube and Facebook as well. We want to see what we've said. He did a show, and the whole show was about transgender, the transgender bills and movement on April the 8th. And he said that the thrust of his show was how transgender people threaten the perpetuation of the species, how dangerous transgender people are to the human species. So Tucker Carlson not only is an anthropologist, but he's apparently a physician. He's just so many wonderful things.
Well, he's just a shade tree doctor, well, like of course like a geneticist there, And that's a very important point. So one of the things, and I'll expand on that because I've heard this before, is for one, if you believe in God, so let's say I personally don't, but for people that do, whether it's Allah, God, Jesus, Buddha, whatever your religion is, most of them,
vodka,
vodka. That's very good. Yeah. But shaken, not stirred. But anyway, if when you think about a being that is an alpha to an omega, an all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful entity, and you subscribe to that, don't you think that God, that makes everything, would be capable of making more than two genders. So we got more than one or two skin colors, hair colors, eye colors, heights, weights. We've got this beautiful diversity of humans out there. They're just beautiful. All humans are beautiful and valid. But it would be so weird that all of a sudden we can just make boys and girls. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's impossible for us to have gender diversity.
I think,
yeah. And I think these people are so narrow-minded because they want to be, they choose to be ignorant. But but what's weird is there's, they'll tell people, God didn't make a mistake. And I said, well, what makes you think I'm a mistake?
Yeah.
What if I'm just part of the big, beautiful human diversity of the human genome? You don't look like me and I don't look like you. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, Jenny, I wish Mama Ruth was on here today because she brings a perspective that you and I know I've learned a lot from her, but she's very devoted to her faith and so forth. But she has a different perspective. But I do know, just like I do know people who that's their belief. They believe, and what's interesting is, I don't mean to I'm not trying to belittle their beliefs because everyone believes what they need to believe.
Absolutely.
But I do think we have to have common sense on certain things. And what I'm saying is, if you are an individual that is so afraid of your family member, other family members, your neighbors, people you work with, like we said before, or something, there are other things that are issues in your life. And what we have to do as a society is we have to be able to acknowledge with some of the really fundamentalist people, the ones that we see out with the signs during the RNC 2020, when we see those individuals. But we also have to, as a society, we have to call their baloney out. And not I don't want to say it like that. I don't want to say call their baloney out, but we have to say, there's a saying that we have, so I think sometimes something's wrong in there. Yeah, go ahead.
When somebody says something so obviously bigoted and just ignorant, just to the point to where you just go, you either don't listen to what you say or you're too stupid to understand what you're saying. But either way, when you hear something from a bigot and you internalize it and just spew it out of your mouth, and you don't think about what you're saying, and realize the impact, especially when you're talking about public figures.
Sure.
When you're talking about people that are people of authority, those are the ones that scare me. The rank and file, dirty Santas, and the regular people on the street, I look at them and they're not harmless, but they don't have an audience. But when you look at somebody that is a president or a General Assembly member or somebody that can actually impact policy, either through their influence, their money, their access to people that can affect the policies, and they so devalue a specific group of people, no matter who it is, whether it is new arrivals, that are predominantly from the LatinX community, transgender people, people of color, Asian people that have been here for decades, and now we're seeing a rash of Asian hate. But this irrational hate and fear that's not grounded on any facts or legitimate threat, but is grounded on some kind of internalized bigotry and ignorance. That's the part that's been generated by big groups. And I want to speak to Christianity for a bit. And it really has more to do with the Black Lives Matter movement. But I think anybody that looks different is in the same book. And I want to quote actually or paraphrase a Bible verse. And really, I saw it on the Instagram actually today. And it says, if you really are a Christian and you can't hear Black Lives Matter without feeling the need to respond with a criticism that all lives matter, then crack open your Bible. Look at Luke 15. And let me summarize this. Jesus had 100 sheep out in the pasture. And Jesus said, if one goes missing and Jesus leaves the other 99 and goes after the one, people will sometimes question, why would you leave the other 99? Jesus' response would be, but what about us? Don't we matter? And of course, the answer is yes, the 99 still matter. But the one that was lost is the one that's in danger. My community makes up 1 out of every 200 people. We are not a threat in any way, shape, or form. And to characterize, legislate genocide towards my community, especially children, is terroristic, it's un-American, it's unpatriotic. And if you truly love your country, then you have to look at my community, the trans community. We're Americans too. We're North Carolinians. We're your neighbors. We're your aunt. We're your uncle. We're human beings. And to attack somebody that looks different or prays different or loves different is completely against we the people. Read the Declaration of Independence, read the Constitution, and understand for us to be the United States means we have to be united against hate, united against discourse, united against division. And we can't be one people if we pick out segments of our society and try to use them as scapegoats or reasons to get elected, to get promoted, to get whatever it is that makes you want to do that, where you're pushing somebody down to rise up. That never works. It never works. And when you have to demean somebody, you're really building your house, your foundation. And if you truly are a Christian, you're building it on a very rocky, dangerous spot, because eventually it'll bite you in the butt.
Yeah. Just
like Governor McCrory found out 5 years ago, it got him fired in a state where he shouldn't have lost, which in a certain good way, we got an unbelievably good Democratic governor and Governor Cooper that led us through the pandemic last year.
I mean, can you imagine if we had McCrory during the pandemic? Wow.
Oh gosh. What a horrible mistake.
Yeah.
But if Republicans, if Christians, people of faith really want to be a United States, you got to stop targeting people.
Well,
I mean, the world looks at us right now, especially Europeans, and they think we're all crazy because they're going, every week we see where another unarmed Black civilian gets murdered in the streets. And I go, why haven't you stopped us? Why, as the supposed greatest country on earth, why is this still happening? Like, I have a lot of friends from Europe that ask me that, and I go, we've got a certain sect in our society that almost acts like it doesn't even exist.
I agree. One of the things that I'm so encouraged. I know I'm very encouraged about the transformation of this country that is occurring, and with the millennials and other individuals, and so to speak.
The baby Z's.
Yes, and the baby. I mean, we've come. I'm encouraged on the direction that the bigots and the racists, and they're always going to be around. Sure. And it takes us to join arms and get allies to show them that they're not going to win, and that their view and their hatred really doesn't benefit it. Why are you, there's this saying, why are you so mad all the time? I mean, it's like, my goodness gracious. Yep.
When you normalize and empower hate,
like Trump did.
Yeah. Quite frankly, violence against not just transgender people, but LGBT people in general, even in safe cities like Portland, in 2017, violence towards the LGBT community, and this is according to the FBI, went up 15% in 1 year. And so it wasn't just, it's me and you when we grew up, because we're about the same age.
Yeah.
Gay bashing was a big thing in the 80s. And for people that don't know who that is, it was a lot of times, especially in Texas, there'd be a lot of really sick individuals that would
drive around,
creep around,
Yep.
creep near, historically gay bars, gay areas, and go after specifically gay men.
Mhm.
And they call it gay bashing. They would just jump out of a pickup truck and just beat somebody, sometimes to death. Yeah, I mean, you saw a reoccurrence
Matthew
of
Shepard.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, Matthew Shepard was a prime example of one of the most gruesome crimes we've ever seen against an individual, and just over him being gay, being a college student and being a young gay male.
Mhm.
And when you as authority figures, when you empower bigotry,
Mhm.
it's like a cancer. And then you've got these really rank and file regular people that hear this from
Mhm.
they hear what they want to hear.
Mhm.
They go, well, that person's less than human. And we saw this with slavery too. That the scientists and the medical people of that day tried to say African slaves had smaller brains, they had this, that they're like wild animals, that they're not really human. We even put it in the Constitution that they were less than human, that they were less than equal. And they dehumanized them and villainized them. Said, oh, if we free them, especially the African men, they'll rape our women and kill our kids and all these horrific things that were absolutely not true. Because when they got completely freed and kind of freed in 1865, literally hordes of Black men did not roam the countryside killing and raping people. It didn't happen.
That's what I find. I find. Go ahead, Jenny.
And they try to do the same thing with transgender women,
Sure.
with the bathroom bills and all the other anti-transgender bills.
Mhm.
Is that all of a sudden, and they try to make it sound like the whole planet will just explode, and that girls and women, cis women and cis girls, won't be able to play sports anymore, and they're going to lose all these scholarships. I heard one Tennessee, I don't know if she was in the Senate or the House in Tennessee, but it was a Tennessee legislator said, well, we just don't do this in Tennessee, and all these girls are going to lose out all these scholarships. And one of the people that was opposing the bill just asked her point blank, what has it happened? Has it actually happened? Has any cis women or cis girls lost collegiate scholarships because of transgender females? And she goes, well, no. And then she didn't even know how many.
That's the argument. Yeah.
And then didn't even know how many transgender athletes in the school systems of Tennessee they even had.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that stopped the bill here in the state when the legislator finally looked it up and they found out there's only 9 total transgender student athletes in the whole flipping state out of 1.5 million kids. After they scraped the egg off their face and realized how stupid this is. And they should have known, common sense should have told them that it was stupid from the beginning.
Yeah, you would think they would have
created this Salem witch hunt over 9 transgender athletes. I mean, come on. I mean, it's just, but it does create hate. And I'll use Charlotte as an example where we're at right now. We've had 2 transgender women murdered this month.
That's what I want to talk about. We had 2 murders, and what was a month ago, I believe, and they were. It was
this month.
Yeah, in April. Oh, yeah, I forget we're still in April. I keep thinking we're in May already. They happened within a week of each other. They were murdered. They have captured the individuals that murdered them. They believe that they were being targeted specifically because they were transgender. They were women of color. And the Charlotte Observer did a wonderful story on this, but also they did some. And I want you to talk. We're going to be running out of time here, but I think this is really important. Explain to people who are not. There's this belief when you see that they were sex workers. That's like sensational. These are sex workers that were murdered, transgender. There are people who are looking for reasons to hate transgender their neighbors, and they will start equating, just like the myth with gay men back in the 80s and 90s with the AIDS crisis and so forth, and even up to today, we're promiscuous, we're out there seeking little boys and, you know, and you know,
All kinds of
and all
crazy
that
stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff. When at the same time, HB2, I was going to say this earlier, the same time they were talking about how they wanted to, you know, the bathroom bills, there were pastors, heterosexual pastors being arrested for molesting kids every month.
Right.
And I always
Well,
thought,
we saw that in Texas with
yeah,
the
it was
pedophile
just-
trials in San Antonio. Pedophile
So-
priests
Yeah.
in the 50s and 60s, 1950s and 60s,
Sure.
were starting to get outed in the 1990s.
Yep.
And it was like hundreds of little boys
Yep.
over several decades. And they were just, that local diocese would find out that they were, you know, that priest was molesting a little boy. And so they'd ship them, you know, to another part of the world, because the Catholic Church is a
Sure.
huge corporation, has campuses all around the planet.
So
they can do that.
yeah, so
But
Jenny,
it is funny that predominantly heterosexual, cisgender, predominantly white men
Mhm.
are not only targeting my community, but also just saying, you know, talking about molestation, when the most common pedophile,
Mhm.
according to the FBI, is white men, usually straight,
Mhm.
usually married,
Yep.
between ages 35 and 55.
You know, we have a openly LGBTQ plus state legislator here in North Carolina, and I was on I think it was LGBT Democrats. I was on their one of their Zoom calls, and I asked, because they were talking about these bills that were being proposed and so forth, and I said, why don't you just propose? It's not going to pass, but why don't you propose a bill to ban all white heterosexual men from being 100 feet on any bathroom, playground? Why? Because we know they statistically are more likely to be pedophiles. It would never pass. But why don't we start proposing those kind of outrageously silly bills to show people how waste of time these are? You know, and of course the response was, well, you know, we need this. You know, I just wish that someone would pass a. You know, there was I think in Alabama there was a legislator that posted a bill to ban Viagra from men. Yeah. And it was because they were trying to do like some abortion thing, and it says, you know what, we're gonna pass laws against men now, you know. And I'm all about eye for an eye, so I'm just, you know.
Sure. And I think it would, but truthfully, as tempting as that is, the you know, to even attempt to do the exact same thing they're doing, which is pick a very specific category of the human race and saying, we're going to ban you from there. It sounds ridiculous when you flip it around, but why is it ridiculous? Why is it ridiculous?
Yeah, exactly.
To ban cisgendered straight men, white men from public spaces, because we all know they're the majority of the murderers. They're the majority rapists. of the serial killers, the rapists, the mass shooters. The violence comes mostly from straight cisgendered men, you know, no matter what their ethnicity is.
And here Trump said, and here Trump said they were all the Mexicans were the rapists, the drug dealers, and the.
Well, yeah. If it came from Trump, it's got to be right? That's true. But the truth is, there was a period of time between Sandy Hook and the Pulse shooting. There was 997 mass shooters. Mm-hmm. In that time period. Out of those 997 shootings, 991 of them were white men. Mm-hmm. And it's always funny how it's usually a white conservative male, usually Republican, usually Christian, that stands up above everybody else and points out what we're doing wrong.
Yeah,
judging us, trying to outlaw us, try to ban us, try to say that Black lives don't matter, trying to, you know, hate on gay men and trans women and everything else. And I'm going, you know, you realize you're hating against your neighbors, you're hating against Americans and North Carolinians and Charlottesville and all that. And quite frankly, we should be past this.
Sure.
We should be past this. And you're making our lives, whoever you target, it always seems like as soon as they mass target this, and they always do,
Yep.
We see violence go up. We see how Trump last year was calling Corona and COVID the Chinese virus, the Asian virus, the Asian flu. And strangely enough, all this anti-Asian, anti-Chinese sentiment, all of a sudden now we have a ton of Asian hate and Asian violence. It's very obvious. It's been caught on video. We're seeing a rise in cities. We saw that mass murder in Atlanta where multiple Asian women were killed. And again, when you devalue a certain population and say they're less than human, when you demonize them for absolutely no reason other than them being themselves on something that they can't change, violence is usually going to come towards that community right after that. And that's one of the reasons that so many cities and so many states across America have passed non-discrimination laws and ordinances, including here in North Carolina, which I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about.
Let's kind of talk about that for about 2 minutes, and then I do want to just circle back on the transgender thing, and then we need to close out here because we do value everyone's time. Talk about Charlotte non-discrimination still has not. Okay, talk about that.
Yeah, so I had to set it up by saying last year, HB2 and HB 142 on the non-discrimination ordinances, not being able to do that on a county or city level expired. So it sunsetted in December of 2020. So in 2021, counties and cities can pass what they call NDOs or non-discrimination ordinances. 9 cities and counties in North Carolina have passed it so far. The city of Charlotte hasn't even brought it up to a vote or even talked about it, including the dominant party on our city council and our mayor are registered Democrats.
Yep.
So on May 24th, we are going to have a huge, I guess, I don't know if I want to call it a protest or a show of solidarity, but multiple, and these are nonpartisan groups too. So it's being led by a partisan group, the LGBT Democrats of Mecklenburg County. But the majority of the groups that are going to be showing up is like the National Organization in Charlotte, ENC, which is Equality North Carolina, Medicare for All is coming. There's a whole bunch of people from Moms Demand Action is going to be there.
Oh,
There's
wow.
a whole bunch of things, and the public post about it is going up on Monday.
Okay.
But the event is on Monday on May 24th, which I believe is a Monday night. So it's at 6 p.m. and it's going to be a mass gathering of groups to show a show of solidarity, to explain to our city council that we need an NDO. And the NDO doesn't just cover transgender women. It covers employment for LGBT folks. It also addresses natural hair for people with different variety of natural ethnic hair that is different than the white narrative. There's a lot of other things in this to protect for housing, for employment, and for any other thing that people should not get discriminated for because they shouldn't have to. We shouldn't be going through this. Again, that 9 major population centers, cities and counties have already passed without even thought. And somehow the Charlotte, which is the biggest city in North Carolina, that should be on the lead of this, that many major corporations is in favor of doing, that already have these policies in place. Major employers like Microsoft, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, these major institutions that already have policies in place just like this, that really wouldn't change much, but it would just institutionalize pushing back against discrimination and hate, make our world safer and calmer, and give people more dignity and more respect that they deserve. If you want to fire me because I suck at that job, I'm okay with that. If you fire me because I'm trans, that's not okay. And so it is a very important thing, and I hope anybody that's listening, especially if you live in North Carolina or Charlotte, want to get involved. I've got a Facebook page, so you can hit me up or hit up the LGBTQ Democrats that is the organizing group on this.
Sure.
Let's put a little pressure on the city council. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of saddened by the fact that I know there's many LGBT allies on the city council, and I think representation matters, because most of the places that passed it has at least one LGBTQ member on the deal.
Yeah.
And because we don't right now, I think that's why there's not a lot of urgency.
Well, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head, and I know we only got a few minutes since we started a little late, and I do want to circle back to the murders that happened in North Carolina. But you and I are not shy about calling things out, which is one of the reasons we have great shows on our normal times on Wednesdays, and Stephen as well, and Barbara and Mama Ruth as well. But I agree with you. There's absolutely no reason other than dereliction of duty for the Democrats on the Charlotte City Council and the mayor, specifically the mayor, because the mayor can drive issues. She was so adamant, and she even did an op-ed. She's only done one op-ed in her entire life about landing the RNC. So we know when she wants something done, she has that's what she's done. She's a career politician. She knows what she's doing. When Governor Cooper was elected, and he was elected on a lot of issues, but mainly because of HB2, and we were looking for a change. We got rid of McCrory. They reached a compromise with the state legislature, and the compromise was this new bill that you referred to, and it put a moratorium, I think I'm saying that word properly, a pause. No city or county or any governing body could pass any NDOs for, like, let's just hold off a second. I think it was 4 years, or maybe it's 3 years or whatever. Our city, county, and mayor had 3 years. They knew the day it was going to end. 3 years to write. All they had to do was copy and paste the last bill. That's all they had to do. Okay. Yeah. Once that expired, like you said, other cities around the country immediately passed their NDOs. Charlotte has not. Their excuse has been, we want to look at the language. We have to call baloney on baloney. All right.
Well,
it's
so
just like, what have you been doing the last 3.5? I mean, what are you doing? I mean, it's it's outrageous.
We've had the ability to assess this since December of 2020. So let's just say, for whatever reason they spaced it the last 3 years, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I'd say, since December of 2020, because it made big news when that lapsed, when that twilighted, everybody knew it. So they're not ignorant on that. I hope they're not. But it was major news, and especially considering everything with the governorship and all that. So they're aware of it. They've been contacted by multiple groups. I know that for a fact. And so there is no ignorance on the deal. So you have to say, is this a willful political game? And I'm calling out my own party because I'm a registered Democrat. I vote Democrat.
As am I. Yeah,
I voted for many of the people that are up on that city council, right now, and so I'm embarrassed because we hold the majority on that city council. There's only 2 non-Democrats on that, and I don't expect the 2 Republicans to bring it up, but I do expect the Democrats to have brought it up. Like, it should have been part of a discussion. They haven't even brought it up. They haven't even been in the mix. So.
I know 2021.
So what gives?
The local election is going to be moved back to 2021, and we do have to hold our elected officials accountable. I do, at the same time, we have to hold people accountable. We also have to praise people who've done great things. Our Mecklenburg County commissioners, they passed a resolution in support of this. And, I know a lot of cities in Mecklenburg County are just waiting for Charlotte to take the lead in this issue. And there's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't, other than they're doing this false, well, we don't want to upset the state legislature by, doing something, or, then why run for office? Why even have a city council? Why don't we just have the state legislature?
But on top of that, if that was true, then the other 9 entities that have passed this.
Exactly.
Including some more rural cities than us. For people that don't live in North Carolina and are not aware of the population, we're the largest county and city in North Carolina, but quite a bit. It's so, we're a technology town, we're a banking and finance, and we've got a lot of fintech companies here, and we've got all this cutting edge stuff. We're the big boy on the block.
Hey, Jenny,
we are towering.
Jenny, I need to cut us off because we're running late here, and we need to wrap up in the next 3 minutes. But I do want to say that one of the things that why this matters, it matters for our industry, for tourism, people who live, work, and play in this city. It matters to be valued. It matters. It matters when people are booking conventions, when media buyers our booking agents or travel agency want to book conventions to come to the city. When the NCAA wants to book something, they want to go to a city that welcomes as many of their people that work for them. And millennials, this is a no-brainer for millennials. The millennials are the biggest chunk of our workforce today, with so many businesses moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, or North Carolina in general. It's important that no one's moving to Mobile, Alabama. No one's moving to Monroe, North Carolina. No companies are moving. No one wants to work there.
And that's a very good point. Sure. So a non-discrimination ordinance that so many major cities have passed over the last 20 years, specifically for the LGBT community, is a huge selling point. It's a huge, Austin, Texas, that had this explosive growth, passed NDOs a long time ago. So you see the most, not just progressive, but high growth cities always pass this kind of stuff because you're right. You don't want to be a CEO of a company and transfer or set up a large, office like Apple's doing right now in the Triangle, with 3,000 or 4,000 jobs, including some people that may come from another office, like in California, and send them to a place that does not have protections for their employees and their families and their loved ones. It just makes sense. For one, it doesn't hurt Charlotte. It helps Charlotte. It's a feather in our cap.
And that's why the excuses they're given, specifically the mayor, because I heard her talk 2 weeks ago on a Zoom call, and someone specifically asked her about this, and it was this, the sky is rising, and it was so baloney, she is our first African-American female mayor, Black female mayor, and she has been giving people have not held her accountable like we would any other mayor. If it was any other mayor, we don't do recalls in this state. She has done nothing for this city other than give us the RNC. Immigration issues, she started a committee. Affordable housing is still still a big issue. Right. She has done nothing other than her hair has gotten more blonde as her election. And I think we have to call out she's useless, and we need a new mayor. And so when she said she was considering running again in 20, I hope she runs again so we can campaign against her and get her out of there, because it has nothing to do with, she is just a useless mayor.
So anytime, whether it's a city or a company or whatever, you are led from the top down, not the bottom up. And your intentionality, the kind of culture you want to create, comes from your leaders. The mayor, in some ways, is very much a figurehead, but one of the ways they can lead is by suggesting, promoting, guiding, and mentoring not only the city council, but the city in general. And when a crisis happens, like the pandemic last year, Mayor Vi just disappeared.
She disappeared. She was nowhere.
Copperfield.
She was nowhere. She wasn't out there supporting small business. She wasn't out there supporting small businesses. She wasn't handing masks out. She wasn't doing anything. And it's
she didn't have any town halls.
Everyone noticed that she disappeared.
It was Matt. Yeah. It was Matt that was having, a city councilman.
Exactly. He was like the default mayor. He was like the default mayor. I know Larkin wants to be the default mayor, but he was the default because Larkin doesn't really do anything but wears bow tie. Matt actually does stuff. Larkin just kind of sits there and pats Julie Eisel's back and the mayor's back.
But I am kind of disappointed because even Matt Newton has not brought it up either.
And so we have to hold everybody accountable.
We see Larkin, we see Julie Eisler, we see all these Democrats that love to march in pride, and they like
And
to,
Larkin represents
you
the
know,
neighborhood, Plaza Midwood.
and
It's like,
they've all, and I'm calling out my party because I don't expect Tariq or
Yeah.
Ed, like, I know they're not going to,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they're also not going to fight it either.
Sure. Yeah, that's
but
right.
Our Democrat majority is who I'm speaking to right now. Y'all have failed the LGBT community. You have, it's a definite dereliction of duty. It's shameful. And you really shouldn't be patting yourself on the back, marching in pride. When it counts, what counts is you showing up and respecting my community that so hardly supports y'all, so hardly votes for you, so hardly is one of the reasons y'all are in office is my community, the LGBTQIA community. So you damn well should respect us by passing an NDO. It's the right thing to do. You don't have to be the first one because 9 other entities have in North Carolina. So you're going to be number 10 at best.
So,
and so they stepped off the ledge.
Yeah. So we covered the NDO, we covered transgender. One of the things that I wanted, we've run out of time when we could be talking about this for a long time. And when you get you and I on the conversation,
me and you talk.
Yeah, I mean, we can go hours
Right.
and as we do all the time. But listen, this transgender education is very, very important. Let me tell you I'm going to tell you a personal story, and we're going to end the show. If you want to find out more about the transgender community, please educate yourself. Join an PFLAG or LGBTQ, or just do some Google searches. I did a Google search and said it might, for people maybe who aren't familiar with the transgender community, and so to speak, they may not even know anybody who's a transgender. All they see is on television. And I did this Google search, and I said, are transgenders? My search was, are transgenders bad? That was what, because I wanted to see a lot of things came up. One of them was from this organization called Student Action Committee, TFB Student Action Committee. They're a far right fringe group, and they said that I need to get this right, the American College of Pediatricians said that transgender is child abuse. It's this. So I'm like,
right.
This is like a real official title. If you are a religious person who gets these, the family values group, all those, Franklin Graham, all those,
right.
religious kind of into it. If you saw that and you didn't know, you would think that's you and I, we know not anything on the internet to investigate it. So I said, well, that doesn't sound right. So I Googled, what is the American College of Pediatrician? The Southern Poverty Law Center popped up, and it says they are a fringe anti-LGBT hate group that they masquerade as a medical group. They started in 2002 to fight gay marriage.
Right.
And they have just continued, and their whole purpose is to just put out this stuff so people think they're like
they're a propaganda group. And,
yes.
And because conversely,
sure,
the American Medical Association came out this week and said the absolute total opposite, which is to take away healthcare, whether it's mental health or physical health, from transgender kids is harmful, it's counterproductive, it's wrong in every shape. And you will never see a legit medical school. In fact, Duke University here, and right here in North Carolina, has one of the nation's leading pediatric transgender health groups in the entire world. And so legitimate universities, medical scientists, and medical doctors know the value of mental and physical treatment.
Well, that's what I just wanted to let people know. So if you're getting these, because I have family members that get these, Catholic Digest and all these really kind of religious newsletters.
They're propaganda. It's propaganda.
Yeah, they're propaganda. And they when you hear that word, the American something, They think that they are the American Academy of Pediatrics. That's the official medical group. It's a 67,000 member group. The other group is a fringe group that just changed one word in that name. It's in Jacksonville, Florida. It's a group, and their whole goal is to stop same-sex adoptions. They failed on gay marriage.
They've been around a long time.
Yeah. So I just want to educate people when you see things like that, because if you didn't know, if I didn't take the time to like go, what is this group? Who is actually saying that? You want to look at these groups that actually say this. And the reason this is important, as an LGBT plus individual grown up, I think, and you could probably relate, in your younger years, you learn to assimilate because you want to fit in. And I tell people this story all the time. I as a gay male in my young professional life, I was gay. I wasn't hiding it from anyone, but I wasn't like in my early jobs and so forth. And people would say, "Well, I didn't know you were gay. I had my gaydar and this." I'm like, "Well, I don't, that my personal business is my own personal business." And I've been that way for a long time. And I know why. It's just kind of my upbringing. I thought, and I told you the story, that I really didn't know any transgender individuals. I've seen them and I've met them, but I've never really met, talk conversations. Janice Covington was one of the first ones here in Charlotte that I met, and she and I had conversations, and she actually helped me start my first campaign. Was on it for a while. She and I drove to Raleigh like almost once a week and so forth. And then, of course, I met you, and early on when I think at a NOW group and so forth, and I was I didn't really know, I never like hung out with individuals. And this is almost embarrassing for me to say this because I try to be as diverse as I can, but I had never hung out with someone. When you first came on the show, we met and you were sitting at this exact table. And this is before the slapping event. If anyone who's watched this show, we went to the lodge after we went to the lodge after Lawana Mayfield's birthday, and this lady I felt was being mean to you, and I stepped in and said something, and she slapped me. So this is a couple maybe before that. I was going to go
before.
Yeah. So I was going to go to the lodge, and I remember you were here. I forgot I was going to do something, whatever, and I think I invited you. I said, "Hey, let's go to the lodge or whatever later." And you said, "Oh, I'd like to this." And you had gone home. And I'm ashamed to say this, but I want to say this because I think there may be people in my same situation. I was afraid to go. I thought I was afraid to protect you. I was afraid that I would get. I don't know. I was nervous, and I thought to myself, that's how people fall into peer pressure and those kind of things. And I thought that's just foolish that I was so afraid to take you to the lodge because I was afraid that we'd be made fun of or whatever the case may be. And I was so ashamed of myself because I actually felt that. And I want to apologize to you because I wish I had been at that moment more educated on, I don't want to be that kind of person. And I know there's a lot of people out there that may be in the same situation, where and I wanted to tell you that experience because that's one of the things in my life that's really haunted me, that I actually remember saying to myself, I was afraid, and it wasn't anything to do with you. It was just it's very selfish in a way that I was, what I should have said was, "Come on, let's go." And I didn't rise to that specification. So I just want to say that I apologize for that. And if you ever want to go to the lodge with me, we can go to the lodge. I know you and I can post COVID or whatever, but I don't know. I just wanted to tell that story because then we went to the lodge, and then I got slapped. After someone was,
which was a crazy story in itself.
Which was messing with you. But anyway,
I think appreciate you saying that, especially on the air. And I know how you feel about me, and I know how our friendship is. And I don't think less of you because of that. In fact, I think more of you from the fact that you're able to publicly talk about that. That's something that you didn't mean ill will. There was no intent to harm me. But a lot of times fear, whether it's rational or not, is still a fear. And it exists. And it's very common. And I think a lot of us do this. And I think we all do this on some level. Like there's some level where we have this irrational fear, and it keeps us from either reaching out to somebody because we're afraid that we won't connect or we'll embarrass ourselves or whatever that fear is. It's good to talk about that. It's good because there could be somebody that listens to the show that has a family member that just came out as trans, or has a coworker or whatever. Well, first of all, I have the same hopes, dreams, and aspirations that any other human being would have. The only difference between me and another woman is the fact that I started my life's journey assigned male at birth. That's the only difference. I am female brain. My brain is wired female. I might sound a little different. I might look a little different. But at the end of the day, it's not the differences that divide us. It is our willingness to reach out to those other people, the people that look different, whatever, and just realize they're humans too. We're all in the same family. We're all neighbors. This isn't the prom. You don't get to just pick and choose who you go with. That it's okay to have a fear of talking to me or hanging out with me. What is not okay is to allow that to become a habit, to allow it to become a best one of your practices. And to your credit, we've been to the lodge several times. We've been to a lot of events together, very public events. Whatever that fear was, it washed away. The strength of your character allowed you to do that and understand that as you've gotten to know me, because that was real early on. I mean, that was like way early on in me coming on the show, because I came on the first time with Melba to talk about the National Organization of Women.
That's right.
This way back in 2019.
Yeah, that's right.
And me and you didn't really know each other that well. And I started coming on as a repeat guest, and then I started co-hosting quite a ways in when we started doing Wired and Tired and all that with Jeff. And, it's one of those things that we sometimes fear the unknown. Sometimes we fear the rejection, and, your lodge friends are your peers. It's a place that you hang out. It's a comfort zone. You like going there. And it's a person that is so different like myself can be a disrupting force, and good and bad. It's human nature to react that way. But just like you and so many other people, like Melba, the president of the National Organization of Women, and so many other people that are not transgender people, but have embraced me, mentored me, invited me to events, included me to events, included me into the show. It is definitely changed my life for the better. Our friendship has definitely made my life richer and more valuable. And you've been a legit friend, and I definitely love you. I love Andrew.
Thank you.
We are definitely family.
Who's Andrew? I'm not gay.
Christian's not gay, but Andrew is.
We just sleep with each other.
But it's just,
I don't mean to,
it's one of those things that I think through getting educated and just honestly, just I do a lot of speaking engagements over the last 5-6 years, and a lot of times I think people compartmentalize things and they think I'm some kind of pod person, or I just live differently, or I come out of some bat cave or something. I'm going, I'm no different than you are. I do the same things you do, but my origin story is just slightly different than yours. But and I'm vegan. I think I.
That's the weird part. That's the weird. That's.
I actually, most people nowadays that come into my life are more freaked about me being vegan than they are about me being trans. They're like, no, dude, trans, you're really not that special. We don't really care about that. We want to
No, I mean
questions about you being vegan. I'm like, really?
But
I'll eat plants?
but isn't that the world we really want to live in? And you know, we want to live in the world, and I think it's there's a lot of things that have happened in my lifetime that I never thought would happen. I do believe that we will get to a point, not with everyone. There are still people that are racist that in this country. That we will get to a point that the one thing that they see about you and me as a gay male and you as a transgender woman is not that we're gay or transgender, is that I like Miller Lite and you're a vegan. That I hope as we get to a point in this world where that is what shocks them, that they go, you're a Miller Lite drinker, not a regular beer.
if that is the highest hill we have to climb in life at some point,
Isn't that
I
wonderful?
would be super grateful for that.
Well, I hope
and I do think I think most people, and we saw this even in 2016. So when that bathroom bill passed, many major press outlets here in North Carolina did polls, and universally, and this was in the height of the craziness over this thing, 70% of North Carolinians were against the bill. That included Republicans. So I will say most of my interactions in my daily life, whether it's at a store or a gas station or anything else, are usually positive interactions. I very rarely have an awkward moment in person. Now, I have a lot of people that are super brave in social media and will say nasty things, but they're sitting in their mom's basement, smoking something funny probably, so they have Facebook courage. But in real life, the people that matter the most, the people that I can see in person, I will say for Charlotte and for North Carolina, I've had 99% positive experiences.
Yes.
And I think most transgender people do. Now that 1% still can be scary, and I have had some incidents in this town, but I think so many other people go through so much worse. I still have white privilege.
Yeah.
I still have a physical presence. You can't really tell on Zoom, but I am 6 foot tall. I am pretty athletic and pretty imposing. And when I get to clapping like this, you better watch out. You better run for cover. So I do have a lot. I don't have a lot of people out in the wild that are really willing to, even that drunk lady, she would rather slap you than slap me.
That's
right. So she must have either found you less of a threat. Of course, you were a little bit more. I was the feminine. Well, bless your heart.
That's right.
People don't know this story. So we were doing a nightcap at the lodge, and they had a band going on, and we were in superhero costumes.
We had left Luana Mayfield's birthday party. We went to the lodge to have a nightcap. It was busy there. We're sitting in a corner. This lady comes up and starts to really just be mean.
Well, first thing she was saying is she looked at me, and I had a really shiny vinyl superhero costume on, and she goes, well, anybody can wear that. You're not that special. And I said, no, here. Like, I started to pull up the website and showed her where I bought it at. And I said, no, you could buy one too. If you'd like to have a matching one, that's fine. And then she kept on keeping on it. And then you heard that. Christian steps in between me and her and starts basically straightening her out.
No, I said, I said something like, I don't know where you think you're at, but we don't like trailer trash here or something like that or whatever. Yeah. And she just slapped me. And I was like, I know she didn't. And I almost like, I wish now I was more reactive, but I wish I had hold on, Jenny, hold my earrings.
Yeah, you're ready to snatch a wig. You were pretty livid. Luckily, the lodge saw that and they escorted her out.
Well, and of course, I probably should have said trailer trash, but it was just, it was just, we don't get that kind of anyway, so that was the bougie part of me saying trailer trash. I put, I didn't
It
know
was
what
pretty
else to
funny.
say, but listen, we do need to end the show because you and I can talk
Yes.
forever and ever, but we do value everyone's time. Those who are going to be watching us later, they're going to say, oh my goodness, this went for a long time. But listen, this has been a great conversation. I want to thank you, Jenny, for being with us and educating us and continuing to, just be a light in all of our lights. And hopefully one of the, that's the reason that we started the show was to just to have these conversations with each other, talk about issues that maybe other people aren't talking about, and hear the dogs in the background barking. That's time to get off here. So I do want to thank you for joining us. We'll drop this show on YouTube a little later, and then also you can continue to watch all of our shows on Facebook, our YouTube as well. Next Wednesday is our regular show, every Wednesday morning at 10 in the morning, and we'll have the whole crew back, Mama Ruth and Barb and Jeff, Stephen, and who am I missing? Jenny, of course, and it's our Chancla show. We have a Chancla show periodically, and it's going to be our Chancla show. And then once again, next Thursday, we'll have another special night show, and we'll be talking about gun violence and gun epidemic. And then we have a lot of great shows coming up in May. I can't believe it's going to be May in just a couple of days. So yeah, and so thank you so much for joining us. Jenny, very briefly, tell us where you're going to be over the next couple of days.
I'm going to a housewarming party on Friday night for good friends of mine that just moved to Noda and got a pretty cute little place. So that's pretty much the extent, plus doing all the work that I do. And I'll be right here next Wednesday. Oh, and I'm getting my last vaccination, my second Pfizer shot.
Great.
A week from today. So I'll be getting it the morning of the Thursday night show. So I'll be able to tell everybody how I'm doing during the show as well. So
don't forget the Raphael trick. I know you don't drink a lot, but
I'm going to bring my snake bite kit, and I'm excited because they're going to give me an extra microchip. So we
can track you. We can track where you're going. Yeah. So I will be camping this weekend. I believe we're going camping once again, and so camping season is in full swing. It's hard to believe it's May. I can't believe that. And so thank you so much for joining us, Mama Ruth. We miss you, Barbara. We miss you, Stephen. We miss you, and we will see you next Wednesday on our regular show on Coffee and Conduces. So stay on, Jenny, so we can do a promo. We'll see you, baby. We'll see you later. I don't know how that came.
That's the one.
That's right. Bye, y'all. Hold on a second. Oh, let's see.